All right, we're going to start the week off with a perfect example of the left swing. If you missed Meet the Press yesterday, you missed quite a whopper. The show's host, Chuck Todd, once again embarrassed himself by manipulating the Attorney General's words. It started with this exchange. Take a listen to this.
You brought up Bill Barr. Peggy Noonan, I want you to listen to this Bill Barr answer to a question about what will history say about this. Wait till you hear this answer. Take a listen.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
I was struck, Peggy, by the cynicism of the answer. It's a correct answer, but he's the Attorney General. He didn't make the case that he was upholding the rule of law. He was almost admitting that, yeah, this is a political job.
Man, that was a bad clip. It really sounds like he did something really bad, right? He's smug, not caring about truth and justice, all about himself. But, oh, wait, that's not the whole story. Here's really what Bill Barr said.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history. But I think a fair history would say it was a good decision because it upheld the rule of law. It upheld the standards of the Department of Justice, and it undid what was an injustice.
Well, gosh, that doesn't sound like what he said. The DOJ Director of Communications tweeted out, very disappointed by the deceptive editing, commentary by @Chuck Todd on @Meet the Press on AG Barr's CBS interview. Then Meet the Press went on to tweet, replying to Kerry Kupek, the spokesperson, you're correct. Earlier today, we inadvertently and inaccurately showed a video clip of an interview with AG Barr before offering commentary and analysis. The remaining clip included important remarks from the Attorney General that we missed, and we regret the error. Missed? Inadvertently? Give me a break. How and why does something like this happen? Let's ask our media experts, former CNN anchor and brand journalist Heidi Collins, and host of the Daily Caller podcast, and author of an amazing book, Outrage, Inc., Derek Hunter. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, Heidi, you've been an anchor. Walk me through how something like this happens, right? So Chuck does this sanctimonious, talking about how the Attorney General's answer didn't really exhibit any emotion for the rule of law, and it did. And so to talk about inadvertently missing something is just false. How can he walk out and say something like that knowing that it was wrong? Shouldn't he have to issue some kind of apology himself?
Well, it's a great question because, these are the types of code of ethics and standards that good journalists who are really trying to do good, fair, accurate reporting 100% of the time establish before landing interviews or before landing real estate, if you will, on air. Like Chuck Todd has a lot of real estate. I think he's on 6 or 7 days out of the week. And so what I'm saying is if you already have in place what the rules are for if and when there is an inadvertent mistake, you will correct it duly and give it equal time as when you broadcast that first mistake. But I think that he's been on several times since, at least once, and he's not spoken about it on air again. It was just a tweet.
Right.
Tweet does not equal broadcast media.
Correct. So, Derek, here's the interesting thing. One, I make mistakes. I assume you and Heidi and Lindsay, we all do. It's one thing to make a mistake. It's another thing to blatantly skew what they did and then cover it up, acting like nothing happened. The tweet that they sent out got about 3,000 likes, meaning this apology. I think they get a couple million people that watch the show. So it's amazing, Derek, when they do something like this, it's called inadvertent and missed. If this was you or I that did something like this, they would talk about us being liars.
Well, there's really two options here. Chuck Todd is wildly incurious about the news and didn't wonder what the Attorney General said following the remarks that they showed, and nobody bothered to show him. or he knew and it didn't help his narrative, so he wasn't interested in it. So either one of those options isn't particularly good, but in the idea of the tweet getting such little play, it was a reply tweet. It didn't even warrant a standalone tweet from Meet the Press. Therefore, the only people whose timeline it showed up in are the people who follow both Meet the Press, which has a sizable 600,000 plus following, and the DOJ spokeswoman, who only has about 34,000 followers. So it's a very small audience that they broadcast their pseudo apology to in the first place. They could have retweeted her and added commentary with their pseudo apology. They chose not to do that. They took the more indirect route so they could check the box, say we apologized. Meanwhile, Chuck Todd has not said anything on Twitter or on television anywhere whatsoever. We don't even know if he's aware of it.
You know, Heidi, I think something that's really interesting about this as well is that they didn't say anything about this. Meet the Press didn't come out. It wasn't until they were called out by Carrie Kupek, who actually says, hey, you have edited this incorrectly, and they come back and say this little tweet apology. But how much, as being in the media and being an anchor, how much responsibility is on the hosts themselves and the show to say, hey, actually, we made a mistake before someone forces their hand almost on it and calls it out?
Well, I guess you have to really consider how much credibility and trustworthiness means to that anchor or that reporter. I would like to think that it should mean everything to them, but it's not really what we're seeing these days in the news at all. So I would certainly say, as I mentioned earlier, that, you know, the moment you have an opportunity to give the correction of the inadvertent mistake, if you truly believe in this type of journalism, which is called justice, really, then you're going right out and you're giving it the exact amount of time that you gave your first piece of information.
Derek, in your book, Outrage, you talk a lot about late night hosts. Let me play you a clip from Jimmy Kimmel on what he said about Mike Pence taking some PPE to a nursing home in Alexandria, Virginia.
Here he is with no mask on, wheeling boxes of PPEs into a healthcare center and doing his best to lift them. What a hero. Just barely in the door. And since it was going so well, and also because he didn't realize he had a mic on, Magic Mike decided to keep it going. Listen in closely here. Mike Pence pretending to carry empty boxes of PPEs into a hospital is the perfect metaphor for who he is and what he's doing. A big box of nothing.
So, you know, it sounds great, except for the vice president was joking. Anyone who's listening to that can tell he's having fun with the guy and say, hey, can I carry the empty boxes in? So Kimmel then tweets out afterwards, it would appear that @VP was joking about carrying empty boxes for a staged political stunt. The full video reveals that he was carrying full boxes for a staged publicity stunt. My apologies. I know how dearly this administration values truth. So, you know, once again, they get caught in being wrong, and instead of just saying, hey, my bad, screwed up, move on, apologize to Vice President in this case, they have a non-apology.
Being a liberal means never having to say you're sorry, Sean. They used to be funny. They used to have set up, punchline. Now it's political speech, applause line, political speech, applause line. There are no jokes anymore in late night. They are the mean girls in high school. That's fine. I mean, they make a nice living at it. Jimmy Kimmel happens to be in third place in the ratings in this race. So you'd think that sooner or later he would go, hey, wait, maybe if we try a different tactic rather than trying to out Colbert, I should try and be something different. But you know what? As long as the check's clear, they don't really care. They're making millions of dollars. They get to correct things on Twitter with little snarky tweets and emojis and feel superior behind their gated communities. And that's it. The network executives don't care. Look, at the news division is not held to honesty standards. Where do we even get off expecting comedians to try and do that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's important because these guys, this is where a lot of people, unfortunately, are tuning into their news. So again, you can't unring these bells. Once people say it, they don't see the, tweet apology, faux apology. Anyway, thank you guys, Heidi and Derek. I really appreciate the insight that you bring to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, the media bias conversation continues with best-selling author Dave Rubin. The one-time liberal is now calling out the left. Find out why. He's going to join us next.